In the enigmatic depths of the Ottoman Empire's imperial harem, where the flickering light of oil lamps danced across intricate Iznik tiles, adorned with floral motifs symbolizing fertility, renewal, and the eternal cycle of life, and the distant call to prayer from the towering minarets of the Topkapi Palace mingled harmoniously with the soft, haunting strains of oud music echoing through the labyrinthine marble corridors that connected the various chambers of this secluded world. Young women, often mere adolescents plucked from distant lands, through the brutal machinery of the slave trade that spanned from the snowy peaks of the Caucasus Mountains, where fair-skinned Circassian girls were renowned for their beauty, to the sun-baked markets of North Africa, and the diverse ethnic tapestry of Eastern Europe, embarked on a profoundly transformative journey of education and preparation that extended far beyond the rudimentary skills of domesticity, delving deeply into the subtle arts of seduction, intimacy, and sexual prowess essential for navigating the treacherous waters of palace life filled with intrigue, alliances, and ever-shifting power dynamics. This hidden curriculum, shrouded in multiple layers of secrecy and passed down orally through generations of elder concubines, odalisques, and the influential Valid sultans who ruled this female domain with ironclad authority and strategic foresight, was not merely an initiation into womanhood but a strategic arsenal meticulously designed to empower these young girls in a rigidly patriarchal domain where their bodies, intellects, and wits served as their primary currencies for survival, social advancement, and wielding indirect influence over the mighty sultans who commanded one of history's most expansive and enduring empires, stretching from the gates of Vienna in the west to the Persian Gulf in the east and encompassing diverse cultures, religions, and traditions. From the empire's zenith in the 16th century, under Suleiman the Magnificent, when the harem evolved from a mere residential quarter into a powerhouse of political intrigue and dynamic maneuvering known as the Sultanate of Women, during which figures like Harem Sultan rose from slavery to become de facto rulers, to the waning days of the 19th century amid the Tanzimat reforms that introduced glimmers of Western modernity and challenged traditional structures by promoting legal equality and administrative modernization. This education blended practical instruction in daily arts with mystical rituals rooted in ancient folklore from Persian, Arab, and Byzantine sources, herbal lore drawn from diverse pharmacological traditions including Unani medicine, and performative arts that honed both physical grace and emotional intelligence, all aimed at honing their allure, ensuring fertility in a system where producing male heirs was paramount to securing one's position and legacy, and mastering the nuanced intricacies of pleasure to captivate the sultan's fleeting attention amidst hundreds of potential rivals vying for the same favors. Historical sources, such as the vivid and expansive 17th-century travelogue Seyahatnam by Evliya Çelebi, who, as a well-connected Ottoman courtier, explorer, and chronicler, with access to elite circles, glimpsed the harem's inner workings through his interactions with palace officials and provided tantalizing details on the daily rhythms, cultural practices, and social hierarchies within this veiled sanctuary. Describe these lessons in evocative prose that blends first-hand observation with a touch of wonder and admiration for the women's resilience. Meanwhile, European observers like Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, the pioneering English aristocrat and writer who resided in Istanbul from 1716 to 1718 as the wife of the British ambassador and gained rare access to elite Ottoman women's circles, through her friendships with influential figures, marveled in her enlightening Turkish embassy letters at the sophistication, poise, and intellectual depth of these women, attributing their remarkable composure, elegance, and conversational skills to a rigorous upbringing that far surpassed the limited, often superficial education afforded to their Western counterparts during the same era, where women were frequently confined to needlework and basic literacy without the emphasis on strategic empowerment. Scholarly analysts, including Leslie P. Peirce's seminal 1993 work, The Imperial Harem, Women and Sovereignty in the Ottoman Empire, which draws on meticulously examined archival Privy Purse registers detailing expenditures on education and gifts, diplomatic dispatches from Venetian and French envoys who reported on palace gossip and power shifts, and Ottoman court documents such as fatwas and endowment deeds to reconstruct the intricate processes of harem life, and Madeline C. Zilfi's Women and Slavery in the Late Ottoman Empire, which delves into the socio-economic dimensions of slave training, the pathways to manumission through marriage or service, and the economic independence some women achieved through stipends and property ownership, help demystify this cloistered world, separating the Orientalist myths perpetuated by Western artists and writers of perpetual sensuality, idle luxury, and exotic excess as depicted in paintings by Delacroix or novels by Flaubert from the grounded realities of disciplined, multifaceted preparation that emphasized resilience, adaptability, strategic acumen, and the cultivation of alliances within the harem's complex social network. This comprehensive exploration uncovers the multifaceted layers of their training, from foundational skills and etiquette, protocol, and household arts that subtly masked deeper lessons in sensuality and interpersonal dynamics, such as learning to pour sherbet with graceful movements that hinted at bodily poise. 2. Elaborate beauty rituals rooted in ancient Unani and Persian pharmacology that involved hours of preparation to achieve an ideal of beauty aligned with Ottoman aesthetics. An intimate knowledge whispered in the steamy seclusion of hammams, or under the cover of night in shared dormitories, all while carefully adhering to Islamic taboos that framed sexuality within the sacred bounds of marital duty, mutual consent, and reproduction as outlined in religious texts like the Quran's verses on marriage and hadiths, emphasizing kindness in intimate relations. In a confined yet opulent space where a single knight of favor could elevate a lowly Kari from obscurity to the exalted rank of Haseki, favorite consort, or even valid sultan with immense behind-the-scenes influence over state affairs, including advising on appointments and policies. These secret lessons were the unseen forge of female agency, transforming vulnerable young women, many of whom had been torn from their families, cultures, and homelands through war or trade into adept architects of their own destinies amid the opulent shadows of power, rivalry, imperial grandeur, and the constant threat of downfall. To fully appreciate the scope, depth, and profound significance of the sexual education provided to young harem women, one must first contextualize their entry into this cloistered world, a process that began with their acquisition, as slaves often captured during military campaigns in far-flung regions like the Circassian highlands, where tribes were known for their equestrian skills and beautiful daughters, the Slavic territories of Eastern Europe including Ukraine and Poland, or the diverse ethnic groups of sub-Saharan Africa such as Nubians prized for their exotic features and their initial indoctrination upon arrival at the imperial palace in Istanbul, the bustling heart of the empire overlooking the Bosphorus Strait. These girls, typically aged between 12 and 16, upon entry to ensure long-term potential and the ability to be molded into ideal Ottoman consorts, were selected for their physical beauty, robust health, resilience to the rigors of palace life, and signs of innate intelligence, as noted in detailed Venetian ambassador reports from the 16th century, such as those by Bartolomeo Contarini, who observed the meticulous screening processes in Istanbul's bustling slave markets where agents of the valid sultan scouted for promising candidates with an eye toward both aesthetic appeal, intellectual promise, and compatibility with the harem's ethnic diversity that enriched its cultural fabric. Upon induction into the harem, which could house anywhere from 300 to over 1,000 women at its peak during the 17th century under sultans like Murad III, they underwent a ritualistic conversion to Islam, if not already adherents, involving ceremonial ablutions in the Grand Hammam with its domed ceilings adorned with star-shaped vents, heated marble slabs for relaxation, and fountains spouting scented waters, and the solemn recitation of the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith, marking their symbolic rebirth as integral members of the Ottoman household, severing ties to their past identities, and adopting new names often evoking beauty or virtue, like Gulbahar Spring Rose or Mirama Sun and Moon. This initial phase, lasting several months or even years depending on the individual's progress and aptitude, focused on acclimatization, cultural assimilation, and basic training under the strict supervision of Elder Khalfa's senior servants with specialized roles in areas like wardrobe or cuisine, and the authoritative Kizm, the chief black eunuch, whose castrated status ensured impartiality, unwavering loyalty to the sultan, and freedom from sexual temptations while overseeing the harem's daily operations, hierarchies, and even financial allocations from the privy purse. Historical accounts, like those preserved in Albertus Bobovius's 17th-century memoirs, as a former palace insider, converted Polish musician, and page who served in the Sultan's court before his marriage, describe how these novices were housed in communal dormitories lined with luxurious silk cushions, Persian carpets woven with intricate motifs, and latticed windows offering glimpses of the palace gardens, rising at dawn for the Fajr prayer and a regimen of chores that instilled discipline, humility, and a sense of communal responsibility, gradually learning the Ottoman Turkish language along with elements of Persian for poetry and Arabic for religious texts to communicate effectively in the multilingual court environment where diplomacy, religious discourse, and artistic expression intertwined seamlessly. The education was remarkably holistic, blending practical domestic skills with subtle introductions to sensuality and social navigation, sewing, and embroidery, for instance, were not mere crafts but opportunities to create intimate, personalized gifts like embroidered handkerchiefs scented with musk or silken undergarments adorned with intricate patterns symbolizing love, fertility, and devotion. Designed to tantalize the Sultan during private audiences and leave a lasting sensory impression that could distinguish one from rivals. Music and dance lessons. conducted by skilled instructors often hailing from Circassian or Georgian backgrounds renowned for their innate grace and rhythmic prowess, taught the rhythmic undulations of the kenji, a traditional harp-like instrument, with strings plucked to evoke emotion, and the graceful, hypnotic movements of oriental belly dance known as raks sharki, which, as Peirce explains in her detailed analysis of harem hierarchies and power dynamics, serve dual purposes, providing entertainment during lavish palace festivities, such as circumcision ceremonies or royal weddings, and subtly preparing the body for the physical demands of intimacy by enhancing flexibility, poise, core strength, endurance, and a heightened self-awareness of one's form, movements, and the subtle language of the body. Literacy formed a crucial cornerstone of this curriculum, with girls learning to read and write through beautifully illuminated Qur'ans featuring gold leaf and calligraphy, and classical poetry from Ottoman masters like Fuzili, whose ghazals explored themes of love and longing, or Baki, known for his eloquent divan poetry. Zilfi notes in her work that by the 18th century, many concubines had advanced to composing their own verses, using them as seductive missives slipped to the Sultan via trusted eunuch intermediaries, thereby blending literary talent with strategic courtship and demonstrating how education fostered not just compliance but creative agency. The core of their sexual preparation unfolded in more discreet, intimate settings, often in the steamy seclusion of the hammam, where the humid air carried scents of rosewater, eucalyptus, and lavender to promote relaxation and openness, or during nocturnal gatherings in the Valid Sultan's private apartments adorned with velvet divans and crystal chandeliers, where elder women, many former favorites themselves with scars from past rivalries, imparted knowledge drawn from ancient treatises like Ibn Sina's Canon of Medicine, which integrated Greek humoral theory with Islamic ethics on health and harmony, and folk grimoires blending Unani herbalism with Sufi mysticism that emphasized spiritual harmony in physical unions and the balance of body and soul. This education was implicit rather than explicit, carefully framed within Islamic ethics that highlighted mutual pleasure, respect, emotional connection, and satisfaction in marital relations, as per hadiths from the Prophet Muhammad promoting foreplay, kindness, and the wife's right to fulfillment, thus avoiding direct confrontation with religious prohibitions against promiscuity, explicit lewdness, or anything that could be construed as moral corruption. Beauty rituals served as the foundational gateway to these deeper lessons. Depilatory pastes formulated from arsenic sulfide, quicklime, and soothing rosewater were applied meticulously to remove body hair, ensuring silken smoothness that aligned with Ottoman ideals of feminine hygiene, purity, and tactile appeal during close encounters. Henna baths, using paste derived from Lawsonia, intermis leaves, imported from the arid regions of Yemen and applied in intricate patterns during communal ceremonies, dyed skin and hair to a rich auburn hue symbolizing vitality, passion, marital readiness, and even warding off evil spirits, while also conditioning the body to a fragrant, supple glow that enhanced confidence. Bobovius recounts in his memoirs how novices learned to apply kohl eyeliner ground from antimony and mixed with olive oil for longevity to create hypnotic, almond-shaped eyes that could pierce through veils and captivate from afar, alongside adders of rose or jasmine distilled in palace workshops for an irresistible scent profile that lingered subtly on pulse points. Dietary regimens were tailored to boost vitality, fertility, and overall well-being. Fresh figs plucked from palace orchards were consumed daily for their symbolic resemblance to feminine forms, high amino acid content that enhanced energy and mood, and reputed aphrodisiac properties. Oysters harvested from the briny depths of the Marmara Sea provided essential zinc for hormone regulation, libido enhancement, and reproductive health. And saffron-infused macoun pastes, blended with wild honey from Anatolian beehives, pistachios rich in healthy fats, and cinnamon for warmth, served as natural aphrodisiacs ingested discreetly before anticipated encounters to heighten sensory perceptions, endurance, emotional receptivity, and even foster a sense of euphoria, as vividly described in Evliya Çelebi's observations of harem feasts that celebrated abundance, sensuality, and the communal sharing of knowledge. Intimate knowledge included veiled anatomy lessons whispered over discrete anatomical drawings from Persian medical manuscripts preserved in the palace library, teaching erogenous zones, techniques for mutual pleasure such as rhythmic breathing and touch variations, and the importance of communication, emotional attunement, and post-intimacy care, with a strong emphasis on contraception to navigate the harem's intricate reproductive politics. Herbal suppositories made from rue, myrrh, pomegranate rind, or even silphium, if available, were used to prevent unwanted pregnancies, adhering to the one-mother, one-son policy outlined by Peirce, which limited each consort to one male heir to minimize factionalism, jealousy, and ensure dynastic stability by preventing over-concentration of power in one lineage. Seduction arts involved immersive role-playing scenarios and mirrored alcoves that multiplied reflections to build scenes, where novices practiced flirtatious glances, coy conversations, Subtle gestures like the twirl of a veil or the tilt of the head, drawing inspiration from the legendary tales of Scheherazade in 1001 Nights to master storytelling as a form of intellectual foreplay that could prolong interest, build emotional bonds, and turn a brief encounter into a lasting alliance. For those favored girls approaching their first night with the Sultana Momentous, this event known as the halvet or private seclusion, often preceded by gifts like jewels or robes to signify selection, the preparation intensified. A ritualistic bath in waters infused with lotus petals, symbolizing purity, jasmine essence for seduction, and milk for nourishment under the ethereal glow of a full moon filtering through latticed windows. Anointing with rare ambergris oils procured from distant Arabian seas for their musky, pheromone-like allure that mimicked natural scents, and the crafting of protective talismans inscribed with divine names like Ye Wadud, O Most Loving, or Ye Latif, O Most Gentle, on silver pendants to invoke blessings for confidence, protection from envy, and success amid the natural anxiety, excitement, and uncertainty of such a pivotal encounter that could define their future. As the Ottoman Empire evolved through centuries of conquest, cultural exchange, administrative reform, and eventual decline under pressures from European powers and internal nationalism, this education adapted dynamically to incorporate new influences while preserving its core traditions and Islamic underpinnings. During the Tanzimat era beginning in 18, which aimed to modernize institutions, promote legal equality, and integrate European elements through edicts like the Gulhane Hat era, harem women encountered French cosmetics from prestigious houses like Guerlain with synthetic scents that enhanced traditional romantic novels smuggled from Paris that introduced notions of passionate individualism and emotional depth in relationships, and even rudimentary scientific texts on anatomy and physiology translated from German or English, blending these with ancestral practices to create hybrid methods of seduction, self-presentation, and health management that reflected the empire's push toward progress. Yet, for all its empowering aspects and the remarkable agency it afforded, this system was not without inherent risks, ethical complexities, and human costs. Failed preparations, lack of natural affinity, or simple misfortune could condemn a woman to a lifetime of obscurity in the lower ranks, performing menial tasks like laundry or kitchen duties, facing resale to lesser households, or even exile to remote provinces, while success brought not only power, wealth, and influence, but also the perils of jealousy-fueled intrigues, poisonings orchestrated by rivals, political